So we have 4 people here that have either formerly work at a church or currently work at a church, a good-sized church too. And we just wanted to talk about our experience working at a church, our experience working in ministry, the good, the bad, maybe some things that frustrate us, maybe some things that gets miscommunicated working at a bigger church. I'll just open it up with that, and then we'll go from there. Really, that's it. Dennis, you said you had some interesting thoughts, so maybe we could start with you.
Wow, thanks. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I do have interesting thoughts. You know, I mean, I don't know how much it's interesting, but I will say that looking back on it, those 5 years that I worked at the church was probably one of the best 5 years of working in my whole life.
Yeah.
Genuinely. The people that I met, the friendships that I forged, the friends that became family, I mean, all of that, like, was just incredible. And so, I also think about how much fun we did have. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's very easy to think about some of like the challenges you go through just working. And, you know, when you're working at a church, I mean, it's nonstop, man. Like, it's, you know, it's funny, like when you put down you work at a church and you submit a resume, people look at it and they're like, well, let's not talk about that one. Let's talk about the other one. And I'm like, no, let's really talk about this one, because it's a really, like, it's a gratifying job, but it's challenging for sure. You know what I mean? Like, just dealing with people every day is challenging. However, there is a sense of purpose that you would feel like in anywhere else. Like, if you stepped out into the workplace and you jumped into a career and you just felt purpose, like for me, I felt that purpose. And then obviously the friendships that I had and that I've extended after that has been incredible. Yeah. So I wouldn't take away those 5 years. And plus, we had the greatest creative media team ever.
In the history.
I
caught the tail end of that. How many years are you gone from the from working at the church?
2017. I left. Yeah. Was it September,
6
October?
Years.
Yeah,
it's been 6 years. And I met you getting put on into the position that I'm basically currently in right now.
100%.
And we're still here. We're still here, connecting, talking.
And I want to take credit for the fact that I was one of the voices that said we need to hire Rick. Just want to put that on record.
True. It was that wide lens.
Yep.
That one shot.
And I remember I had lunch with Taylor, because our director at the time said, meet with Taylor. And I did. And I was like, you got to bring this guy on. He's amazing. But we've been saying that. And so it was incredible, like how we all got together. And like you said, yeah, it was awesome.
I think you just got married when I started interning, right?
Yes.
2013-ish?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was getting married when you left.
Right.
That's kind of cool.
That was cool. And Koby, you are the prodigy, in case anybody wants to know.
Oh, wait, I was like completely not on the mic, but whatever.
No, you're the prodigy. Let me say that again.
Koby is the prodigy. Dude, Koby's the video team too.
He was.
He single-handedly is the video team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Swiss Army knife, dude.
You can do it all.
You can do everything.
The Swiss Army knife.
Speaking of Koby, what do you think? What's your experience so far? So far, so good?
Still currently working there.
I wouldn't say so good, but
yeah,
it is definitely. I definitely agree with everything you said, Dennis.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, even like you said about the resume. That's something I thought about before. Like, dang, if I ever want to move on, is that even gonna matter? Like all these years, because it's like we know that it's like it's crazy work, like you're saying, and it's like a unique challenge. I always think about it as, you know, your friends, your coworker, like your friends, your work, and your spiritual life is all that same thing. So there's definitely, and your family just up to a lot of people. So there's just unique challenges. It's definitely something that is like you only until you hear other people having shared experiences from other places that you're like, okay, yeah, this is a thing.
It is. Yeah, it is interesting working at a church, having to keep that the spiritual balance, the work balance, friends and family balance, all in one, really, because on Sundays, if you have a duty, it's really hard to do anything else other than that work. And I experienced that difficulty. There was a time where it was really hard to sit in on Sunday services, so we just wouldn't. Now it's a lot better. I'm able to do that whenever I want. We have 2 services on a Sunday, so I can choose whichever one I want to sit in, which is nice. But yeah, that's definitely still a challenging aspect to where I would like to serve in youth more, but I just can't. So, yeah. Taylor, any thoughts? How long have you been outside of the church?
2020 was
okay.
the last year I worked.
Yeah, you got the very
so
beginning of the pandemic, and you're like, I'm a dip.
Yeah, I think we were still doing the virtual meetings when I was like my last couple months there. But, no, yeah, a lot of what Dennis said was like, I made the best friendships, the best connections with people that still are with me today, as far as like mentors and like genuine friends that have stuck like my entire life as were forged in those times, those 5 years that I was working there. I learned the most, like even just professionally, from people there, and was poured into the most of any job that I mean, there's so many things that are intangible that I gained there that I haven't gained in any other job to date.
Yeah.
Like just, there's things that it's hard to like put a name to, because there's so many things that are like deeply rooted, and the seeds that were planted in those years still affect me today. So yeah, a lot of what I experienced there was like were the best like 5 years professionally in my life.
Mm-hmm.
On the same token, there was a lot of challenges, just like I mean, with a lot of things that you see behind the scenes that are just like undeniable, that affect you just on a personal level, and on you can't help but allow it to affect your faith as well, because you see people that are attached to these positions and to positions of authority that some things happen that things you might agree with, you might not agree with, and that you really are confronted with like, how am I going to take this now? You know, and I'm still new to my faith at the time. Like I was 2012, I was saved, and I started working there at 2015. So I was 3 years a Christian, so I was still like very much like, I would say still green in the faith, like still learning a lot, still had a lot of mentors, still had a lot of people that I was, that were investing in my upbringing as a Christian. So I would say there really isn't a perfect time to working at a church. It's not like you need to be a Christian for this many years to like start working there, but there's really nothing that can prepare you for it. But at the same time, like, I think once you know Jesus, and once you have your own faith and your own relationship, like that's what you need to keep falling on, even in the moments where like there's stuff that you see behind the scenes when you're working and you don't agree with, and like you truly like it needs to be you need to be fully grounded and rooted. But yeah, there's definitely times that have been like, I mean, so many memories that I have is rushing through me right now. I'm remembering, but yeah, it's something that's those 5 years, probably the best 5 years of my life. Work as a professional, working at a church.
Best 5 years on a job.
Yeah.
That's tight.
Yeah,
I feel you like seeing the behind the scenes stuff and seeing like everything that is put into a service, and like even seeing decisions that are made that you might not always agree with. It can definitely numb you to certain things that happen in a church service, and that's why you're saying it's important to make sure that you are actually grounded in your faith and not in a single church or a single pastor, whatever it is. And that's something that the church that we either used to go to or currently go to, they speak that to the staff a lot, is don't follow the name of the church that we go to, follow Jesus. And don't follow personality in a pastor, follow Jesus. So definitely big on Jesus, big on that.
That's good.
I feel like part of the reason it's difficult is because, like, just like to a certain degree on us working at a church, people therefore expect us to be like perfect, or like everything we do is like, oh, see, you're like, you work at church and you're this way, or there's just a spotlight on you. And in the same way, the church as a, like the business side of church, like personnel and staff and everything is just people. It's people running an organization at the end of the day. So we like can't conflate God and the church. And like, if you're saying this on stage and then you see patterns, you know, you're there long enough, you see patterns of like, okay, well, so are we doing this or not? You know? And, because it's, like you said, we shouldn't be following the people.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is that, you know, each and every one of us, we have our own experiences, right? So we had different roles. We might have been in the same department. And I think over the 5 years that I was there, I got to meet a lot of people that worked in other churches that were kind of the size that the church that we worked in. And I'm gonna be straight up, man, like the challenges that we faced were vastly different from a lot of the challenges that they faced.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can go on.
Yeah, give us some examples if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think just normal challenges of dealing with people every single day, like, you know, human, you know, just the humanness of people. Like, you know, sometimes it's, you know, easier to maybe rely a little bit more on what we think in that moment, and like, rather than really thinking it through in terms of like, how does this affect other people? How does this affect my relationship with God? And not anything on some like immoral type of stuff. Like, that's what I'm really grateful for, is the fact that the leadership that I was under and the teams that I were a part of, I never had to deal with any of that.
Yeah.
Like, I never felt like immorally, like I was going to be cross, or somebody that I was serving or under, that they were doing the same. Like, it's pretty remarkable. Like, when I look at other churches and friends that have come out of what they came out of, and I'm like, yo, like, my jadedness was much different. Like, it wasn't really about, you know, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, when I really sit down and take a look at it, it was like a lot of it was me. Like, you know, I lost sight of why I was there and the mission that I was a part of, and why God called me to be there. But in God's providence and everything, bro, he makes all things work together. And I'm so grateful, because that was the starting ground from where I am today now. So like, I started in creative media, and now I'm working as a marketing director at a different company. And it's cool to see that how the church was such an integral part of setting me up through that. And I think a lot of the challenge that I face, like just dealing with people every day, like, you know, oh, I think we should do this. No, I think we should do that. Like, prime example of that. I mean, things like that always, you know, can happen a lot, like in any work environment. But, you know, dealing with that at church can definitely, you know, translate to dealing like that with, you know, in the workplace outside of church. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's I think that's at the logical conclusion of what I was thinking, just as a what I just said.
What are you trying to say, Kobe?
I'm trying to say, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
The like I said, like the patterns and everything, they're not like crazy immoral things or like some like whoa thing.
Right.
It's like little things, and it just feels bigger. That's what I was saying. We have a lens, we have a spotlight, because it's like, oh, they're a church, you know? So it's like, exactly, at the end of the day, it's just a lot of things that bother someone, like you said, it's because it's the thing that bothers you about yourself.
Right. And I think, you know, everyone has their own approach to certain things, right? And they have their own vision of what it could be. And I think a lot of times, if you're dealing with people of similar personalities, very type A, like, you may not be able to move really far. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I talked about this earlier, but like, our creative team was incredible, because I look at everybody that was on that team, they're all doing something great. Like, whether they're out of state or they're still here, like, they're doing something phenomenal, you know? And, like, it was hard during that time because we were so much all alike, but we genuinely loved each other. Like, our work style, our approach, we're all very type A. We all want to get things done right.
I love when my phone shows me old pictures of us just like sitting on the floor in an empty room with like random stuff happening, and as we're meeting about, like, it's like 1 minute we're like clowning around, the other minute it's like super serious, like really big boy stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's been stories of where, like, just, you know, personally, like, you know, you seeing somebody every single day. So, I mean, we had like a little, you know, sink that we would wash our like coffee cups with or whatever. And we see those pile up sometimes, and we get upset about that, right? Like we're roommates or something, you know?
I'm letting it soak.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Get your groceries out the cabinet.
I mean, like, contextually
too,
it's just like the real conflict was just the personalities and the flawed human being the mouthpiece for the faith. That was like the conflict of like, are you really putting this like decision that a person that's just following Jesus to the best of their ability, are you attributing that to like God's voice? And like, if that's really like, I guess like it's a maturity thing where it's like, if you're really like blaming something on God because of a decision someone on a senior member of the staff made, or a pastor or something, then that's really like something that you got to reconcile on your own. And that's really like, it was tough because like some of those conversations need to happen like within the church and within like your own department and your lead, and like some of it like maybe like on a departmental level, a person to person level, like maybe stuff can be fleshed out more to where it's like, okay, I mean, it's a person that makes a decision. Sometimes it's like, it's not going to be something you agree with. It's like, but you can't take it as like, you know, this is what God says to you, you know, this is what God is saying to me in my faith. And this is what I'm going to blame God for because I see this, you know, happening in front of me. But
now you're just as bad as who you were claiming they're
yeah, it's just hypocritical, but
it's someone above you making decisions, and you have to trust as someone, if you're below them, that they're being led by the Holy Spirit and then the wisdom and skills that they already have to make the best decision possible. And they might actually do that. It just might not work out how you thought it hoped.
And that could be like something that you just you haven't seen yet. That was the right decision, and you just disagreed with it, but it actually was the right way to go.
Like what do they know about, or what are they planning on the macro that we're just thinking, oh, this is dumb because this isn't what we would do.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you're talking about, Dennis, too. I think you said something along the lines of like people have differences of opinions on the way things should be run or not. And we see it. I mean, I'm social media coordinator. We see comments where, well, why don't we do this? When are you going to bring like midweek back? When are you going to bring Saturday nights back? Stuff like that. But even as creatives, which we've all been in the creative team at one point, I feel like it's even harder for us not getting what we want in a way, because we like to express our creativity to the fullest extent, and sometimes that can get crazy, but we also know it's effective. And so when we pitch our ideas, they don't get picked, and we go with something more simpler or something that we don't think will perform as well. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because just coming from, I'll just speak for myself, from my experience. It feels like almost like my opinion or my expertise in this field doesn't matter. And I'm just doing what is wanted of me, which maybe that's the case. That's fine. But I'd like to think that my opinion matters and my expertise. And you guys feel free to chime in if you've ever experienced anything like that or that kind of feeling similar to that.
Yeah, I think it's like when you boil it down, it's like it's a matter of trust. Like you feel distrusted. And it's like, exactly. It's like because we know that God has put this on our heart and God has given us this talent, we know like that we should be like he's trusted us with it, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, and especially, you know, like just if we're supposed to be sacrificially taking up our cross and like, you know, it's not the best pay, you know, you could be doing more, but you're doing this for God on purpose. Especially with that, it's like, why am I doing that? Why am I like sacrificially being here if it doesn't matter who's in the seat? Like if you don't value my input, then it could just be anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it's like. It just feels like trust.
Yeah. I heard this quote once, and it reminds me of the situation just working at the church, but it was, methods are many, principles are few. Methods always change, principles never do. And so when it comes down to like working at a church, right, like understanding that the methods, those dynamics, they are subject to change, right? But principles should stay the same. And I think when it starts crossing over into those boundaries, I think that's when it's like a little bit more serious. I think in our context, or just me in general, it was more of methods. It's kind of like what you're alluding to, Nick. Like, you know, you've got an idea, but, you know, you said it. Like, it's about submitting to the leader and trusting that, you know, it's going to work out. And I think in those situations, for me personally, it came down to a couple of things. Number one, these feelings that I have, am I voicing that to my leader? Am I being transparent enough to let them know that this is how I feel?
Yeah.
Like prescriptively, right? Like I feel like such and such,
so
right?
I actually, that's one of the points I actually struggle with, because I feel like I would absolutely communicate two ways if there was an opportunity, but I think it's I think any organization intentionally structures themselves to protect the senior people, but you know, like there's not a two-way conversation. so it doesn't feel like I have that opportunity to dialogue.
Was it like a lack of open communication?
Then I would tell you, create that opportunity yourself, and do not be afraid of what's going to happen next. Like, that's what held me back for so long on speaking my mind, is because I thought, oh, if I speak up, then I'm going to be marginalized. Then I'm going to lose my job, right? But then what happened is that, like, I didn't speak up, and I let it rot me to my core, to the point of where I became jaded.
Yeah.
And then I just became dead weight. I was negative to be around it. I wasn't fun anymore. There was no joy in what I was doing. And so for me, like, I realized, like, yo, I should have probably left, like, maybe a little bit before. I felt like I left at the right time, which I did looking back at it. But there was a couple of things I needed to do. Number one, I feel you, Koby. Like, I think there are times where in any organization, you feel like there isn't that two-way dialogue, because there could be a protection of some sort. But I had to create that. And then when I saw that, it just wasn't working out, then I needed to leave. Because if I would have stayed any longer, it would have been a mess, right? And then, so that's really what it came down to. And when I left, bro, I had nothing. Like, I went and I took a job at Trader Joe's because I was like, yo, like, and I got a daughter, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. But when I prayed, I asked the Lord, what should I do next? And he literally said, like, you need to speak your mind. And then from there, like, move on. And I moved on. And honestly, bro, like, this, take it for what it is. But, like, I know that our God is one who provides. And he took care of me when I left, because I left on, like, the right terms. Like, I let people know, like, this is not for me. I'm going to leave. I was thinking about doing other things or whatever. And there was a lot of challenges and whatnot. But it was time to move on, and I'm glad that I did. So I would just encourage anybody, like, out there who is feeling this way, whether it's at your church, whatever, like, if there is no space to dialogue, like, don't be afraid, like, create the space. And, if it's time for you to move on, got to move on. I mean, I hate to be as black as white as that. I understand that there's a lot of outliers, right? There's a lot of, like, there's a security issue. It's like, I'm leaving my place, my income, all of that. But man, I truly believe God he'll direct you and he'll open doors. He did it for me. I know he's did it for many people. So
yeah, it's like,
it's really interesting that, cause, like, I feel like my personality type 2 is, like, I'm very much like, put my head down and I'll do the work. Just tell me what to do. Like, and I won't really question it. I don't know if that's necessarily, like, my personality, or if it's just, like, how I've always operated when it comes to work. But, and I don't know, like, just hearing you say that, it's like, I don't know if, like, I need to analyze, like, if that's, like, me just shutting down the opportunity to speak up, or to be, like, bold and courageous enough to, like, say, no, like, question, or just, like, go to a leader, or go to anyone in authority over me, like, to say, like, hey, maybe we could do it this way. I've always been like, no, like, tell me what I need to do, I'll do it. Yeah. That's literally been it, like, flat out, like, the way I do work. And it's like clock in, clock out. And it's not even necessarily like I don't care about the job.
Sure.
Because to me, like, that's not, that my heart in the work it's not coupled to that, as far as, like, the way I take or receive direction from authority figures. Because I don't even, like, it's not even like, I don't have any animosity or any sort of bitterness when I receive instruction. It's just like, no, tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it. It's just, like, very black and white for me. But there is spaces, and there is times when, like, I do remember being working at church, that I let it eat me, like, and I was just pissed for that week or that meeting or whatever it was.
There's definitely phases, like, ebbs and flows of that.
Yeah, and especially, like, when leadership changes or people get moved around, it's like there were times when I was just, like, had a lot of questions, but I just like kept my head down and just, like, let me do the work, let me keep it simple, and then go.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, like, tied to, like, my heart for the house.
Right.
Yeah. Heart for the house, room for harvest.
Yeah, I will say to their
It wasn't that.
Couldn't just let it slide by.
I had to let it.
I will say to their credit, like, the times that I have spoken my mind a little more than maybe I had in the past, it has been, like, received, and, like, as far as I know, taken to its furthest, wherever far it needs to go.
Yeah.
doesn't always mean things change, but at least you're being heard, you know, at least it's acknowledged.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's tough when sometimes it feels like it's actively discouraged to speak up like that.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's tough. You don't want to ever feel like you can't speak up. And that's why I want to continually speaking up, including doing this, because literally today, right before this, we told someone that we were going to do a podcast episode on talking about our experience working at church, not talking about it positively or negatively, just talking from our own experience. And it was met with, be careful. You don't want to get in trouble. And we know that. And I hope that's not coming across like we're, talking crap on the place that we work at, the place that we go to. Like we said in the beginning, we're super grateful and overall positive experience being there and even currently there. But once that communication is cut off and dies down and they're saying, just stop giving your opinion. Just stop talking. Do what we say. Let me say this first. They've never said that. No one has ever said that at the place that I work. But if that were to ever happen, that's when things would get very, toxic, if you want to use that word, and just not a healthy place to be at. But we're not there, and hopefully we never get there. I don't think we ever will, because the place that we are at and we're at is awesome.
I feel like the biggest thing is that there just needs to be like platforms for being honest.
Yes, definitely.
Avenues in order to speak your mind, whatever it is, whether it's positive or negative, and that's it, without judgment. But also taking the responsibility on yourself to create that too, if it's not there, like Dennis said. If it's not there, then you got to be the one to
make it
happen, and find the leader that'll listen to you. It's someone you trust to maybe speak your mind to. But
definitely always open to more avenues of open communication. Because there are seasons where it feels like, maybe your ideas got turned down a couple times in a row and you're kind of discouraged. And you're like, well, what's the point,
Yeah.
And there's...
Go ahead. I was going to say, and there's a way to do that, to speak your mind, right? And to share your piece. I think there's a lot of respect that goes into those conversations, as you all know. It's really you want to be mindful of your tone, your attitude. You even want to ask God to really check your own heart, before you approach the situation. There's certain individuals who thrive off of conflict. Like me, I'm not that guy. I want to have fun. I laugh. You guys all see me, you know what I'm saying? But there is a moment where you have to really draw the line and just have a serious heart to heart with people. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah. And it's, and what gives us the ability to do that, number one, obviously, is the Lord, but us recognizing too, the value that God has placed in us, the gifts that he's given us. Koby, man, you are by far one of the greatest videographers I've ever met in my life. Anywhere, you know what I mean? Anywhere I go, I'm always bragging about Koby. Yeah. Same thing with you, Rick, when it comes to photos and social media. Same thing with you, Taylor, on social media, or graphic design, but social media too. Why not? But graphic design, and so when I look at you guys, I'm like, yo, why not speak up? You guys have so much value. You guys have, so much gifting that God has given you. You would be a disservice to the organization or the culture that you're working with to not speak up.
Yeah, and and I've thought that before. It's like I would be remiss in the charge that God has given me and the charge that they have given me, the leadership have given me. If they're asking us to do this specific vision, and with your expertise that this is the best way for that to execute that vision, right. And actually the way you're asking is actually very the way it works in this specific niche, it's not necessarily exactly the same as how it works in your niche.
Mm-hmm, right.
And it's when it's those moments, it's you would be remiss to not speak up.